Mr. Ward, first, thanks for talking to us.
Pleasure.
The results, 7 cars, 4 OEMs. This is the third set of cars that have been tested by Global NCAP. What are the key highlights, apart from the fact that the end result or the star rating is not any different from the other tests?
I think to me, it's easy to be a bit disheartened if you say, oh, all these zero-star cars. I think to me that is reflecting the legacy of the current situation where for many years India has not had crash test regulations and nor an information program for consumers. And so a lot of the models we're seeing tested were developed in that, if you like, circumstance. Underneath, I think we have a more positive signals, which is the government has introduced crash test regulations to be applied from October 2017. There's going to be a Bharat New Car Assessment Program, which will start the process of regularly testing all the vehicles, so consumers will have much stronger information about the choices they face when they're in a showroom. All of those things are very positive. Also, even though the results are disappointing, we're seeing manufacturers responding, both in earlier test phases and in this one. In the earlier one we had VW acting to add airbags, we've had Toyota doing the same and so on. And with this set of results, what happened with the Renault Kwid is interesting, where the manufacturer is actually moving quite rapidly to try and address what was a rather poor result that we released today.
You also mentioned that India, as a base for quadricycles, can be a global leader, and in some cases for the two-wheeler industry also. Your thoughts behind these remarks?
Yeah, well, in the two-wheeler sector, the government has already acted on ABS in motorbikes, and in that they're ahead of the United States, for example. So, that shows leadership on a really impressive scale, and you can see why, because two-wheelers is a very important challenge for road safety in India. Quadricycles, it's more, high, volatile discussion. I've seen the campaign to free the cute. My advice is free the cute when the regulations are in place. And I think India could establish a regulation for quadricycles. They are car-like, but that class of vehicles isn't properly regulated internationally or in India. There's an opportunity for India to show global leadership. The UN body, the UN forum in Geneva that meets on vehicle regulations, that category of vehicles, they could have crash tests. If the Indian government prepared an appropriate crash standard for that class of vehicles here, they could table the same standard in Geneva, and within probably 18 months it could be adopted as a global standard. That would help other markets, and I think that would be a good thing, because although I understand the arguments being made about they don't have exactly the same characteristics as cars, the fact is that they can go as much as 70 kilometers an hour. That is a lot of kinetic energy, and you can do a lot of damage both to vulnerable road users and yourself in crashes of vehicles of that speed. So it's appropriate that they have basic occupant protection included.
But in the product in this case, the Qt, I think it cuts off at 50 kmph. So that they argue that the argument is that my vehicle doesn't go that fast enough. So the risk potential is much lesser.
Well, I think if there were speed controlled, I think even less than that, then that would help the argument.
And this is the third year of your tests of Indian cars by Global NCAP. In this time period, if you compare this time period to any of the previous or the other countries where Global NCAP or your NCAP, or there is an NCAP, so how do you compare your experience, NCAP experience here, testing the cars, and same period in those mature markets maybe?
Well, it's very interesting. I was involved more than 20 years ago in discussions both about the basic regulations, in fact, this 56 standard in Europe, and then again about creating Euro NCAP. And the arguments about the regulatory standard lasted for almost 10 years before the original research proposing these crash test standards was 10 years before they were adopted. And in the last 4 or 5 years there was intense arguments in the European Parliament and European Union institutions over the standards, which we won in the end, but after a big struggle. Then we launched Euro NCAP, and we had an almost parallel situation where the industry opposed it. They didn't oppose it quietly. They actually organised a rival event with our first results to try and discredit all the results. I mean, it was very aggressive. That all failed, and we kind of succeeded in the marketplace as credible independent tests. And then the manufacturers themselves eventually started using the results in their own marketing, and that was the end of the contest, as it were, with the industry. But all that process, you could say, probably was about 15 years of arm wrestling. This is all. I mean, in 3 years, the whole discussion has changed from no regulations to government making the regulations to being proposals for a virus impact, industry engaging quite constructively and trying to improve models and so on. So what took 15 years, 25 years ago in Europe, we're managing to compress into 3 years here, which I think is it's a tribute to India, but also it reflects a little bit that I think the industry globally understands these processes now.
Right. And also, we are very close to setting up the Bharat NCAP here. So which area or which country or which region is next in global NCAP focus now?
Well, if you look at the map of the world, we've got Latin NCAP that started 5 years ago, ASEAN NCAP covering Southeast Asia. We already have China NCAP is 10 years old this year. So around the emerging markets, with India, that would be a very big tick on the global map as far as NCAP. The area where there's still nothing much happening is Africa and the Middle East. There isn't very much significant vehicle production there. There is a little bit in South Africa, a little bit in North Africa. But that, I guess, is where we need to think about going, because you have consumers there too, and it's an opportunity to fulfill the obligations that we feel we have from the United Nations to try and have an NCAP in every region, or NCAP-like activity in every region by the end of the UN decade.
Thank you very much, David. Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you very much for watching, and keep following Autocar Professional on social media as well on this YouTube channel for all the latest updates on the automotive industry.